Welcome to Drawing with Abby. My name is Stephanie and this is Abby. And today we're going to talk about AI and the impacts of AI in art. Specifically, the controversies, some of the benefits, and also how we can ethically use AI in art and to promote creative focus. So let's just jump right into it, what are some of the controversies in this present day on AI and art?
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is actually kind of rife with controversy. Um, I think when you talk about AI, you have to first talk about like how how models are built. Because that's really where the true controversy lies. It The way these things work is that um, these big companies like OpenAI or Amazon or Google, basically what they do is scrape the internet for as much information as possible so they can get these models to spit up all of these things. In the case of like image generation, the way it works is that it collects all these images online. So every photo you've ever posted on like Facebook or Instagram or just on blog, or as an artist, everything that we post and share online, those things are collected by these companies. And essentially what it does is it studies these images, figures out what makes these images work
Or style, yeah, that
everything.
and then spit out an image that
So that's a huge problem because no one gave permission for their content to be used like that.
yeah.
So there's the issue of like the copyright of just these AI models reading that information, and then there's a second problem of when it spits out, like if you prompt it to like make an anime drawing of a samurai in the field, it's going to reference all of these existing images from all these artists that's already like put their heart and soul in these things, and then it's going to replicate that in some way.
Is it exactly the same or is it different?
No, it will modify. It will like take like bits and pieces. Especially if you're really good at the prompting, you can be like really specific. And you can like specify an artist style, and then it'll like zero in and hone in on that art style. So when it spits this stuff out, it's not exactly original or new. It's more like a remix of everything that it understands.
Right. I heard an analogy of like songwriting or music that's created on how it's the copyrights on that is so scrutinized and has a process. Can you kind of elaborate on how you see the copyright be for OpenAI? Like how do you want these AI organizations, companies to actually produce these images? Yeah.
So I mean the most ethical way for it to go about, in the way that a lot of like the art community is really trying to get these big companies to sort of follow as a best practice, is the idea of opting in. So YouTube recently launched an update to the YouTube Studio where you can choose to opt in to third-party data streaming, and it clearly like gives you the warning of like what it is, and they're kind of opaque on like who's doing it. It just says third party. I mean, Google itself is one of those third parties, but like that idea of like being transparent that, hey, if you're posting on this platform, we're going to be scraping information, and you can choose to opt in.
So opt or opt out.
So that's one. Two is if you there should be an avenue. Like I should be able to go to OpenAI's website or go to another like competitor's website, and there should be a portal where I can like upload my images if I want to, and then receive some sort of licensing for. The same way you would do it for like stock photography or stock images. I can upload my images to those websites and receive a license or a commission for every time those images are used.
Royalty.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So that I mean, it's still being debated. I guess my thing is like, who needs to regulate this? Like, where does the regulation come from?
Yeah, it's. I mean, definitely, like no big company's gonna self-regulate. We should, if anything, we will learn about like Facebook or like Google is if you let these companies who like tout themselves as being super ethical and for the people, they're just going to do what's in their best interest. So you need a government like some sort of regulatory thing to step in and sort of set the rules of how we're supposed to operate in this space. And there's two problems to that. So one is like the data collection, right? And all the images. The other is, let's say you call yourself an AI artist, and there's tons out there. When they produce images, does that image belong to them? Or does that image belong to the company? Or does that image belong to the people that the AI reference those images from? It is very unclear on the ownership of the output, just as much as it's unclear the ownership of the data sources.
Right. I mean, I'm sure there's arguments on both ways on, if I've seen also some artists say, or the counter argument from some of these organizations is like, well, if you don't want your art to be seen or referenced or anything, don't put it online.
Right.
Right. And, that's definitely not a viable option these days anyway. So,
I think we talked about last podcast, like the only way to build an audience is to be online, right?
yes, yeah, people need to see or hear about you. Like, the traditional methods of doing this, of being a visual artist or artists in general, like, they don't call artists starting artists for no reason. But in order to, make a living out of this or actually go and get your work out there, it needs to be in
Yeah, you need a platform to be seen.
yeah. So these are some of the controversies that are, you can probably debate it for a very long time, both ways. But what now, like, flipping the switch on AI and like using it to your advantage, what are some of the benefits as a artist who draws, a visual artist who wants to become a professional artist? Like, what are some of the benefits of it?
Yeah. So this one's the one I want to talk about because it's so easy
To cross the line.
well, I was gonna say it's so easy to pick a side when it comes to AI, right? Yeah. It's either you're for it or you hate it, and there's no middle ground. Well, I think there's a lot of middle ground, to be honest. Just where that middle ground is, like we're so early with everything. It's hard.
Yeah, yeah, and the middle ground is so subjective. It's great.
Right. It's great, and I think everyone's gonna have like their own comfort zone of what they think is like should be allowed. So benefits, like we're talking about like hard benefits, like why would someone want to use like AI image generation? There are like two that come to mind. So first is if you're someone who wants to express yourself visually, like if you have an idea and it's stuck in your head and you don't have the ability to realize it, your options in the past was to hire an artist to do it. But, if you're in a spot where you don't have the funds to like commission an artist to do like a $200 commission piece, or let's say you're someone that's, impaired in some way where you can't actually create the art, you have the will but not the means, then AI is sort of the way where people who feel like art is sort of gatekeeper to those who have the skills. AI is the way for them to bypass that and actually get the
Right.
that
Yeah.
Now that one doesn't sit well for me because it dismisses, it belittles, and it's sort of and it kind of goes back to our culture right now of just instant gratification. Like you want the end result without doing any of the hard work or like creating the process. Which, to me, if you're interested in like creating like visual illustrations, the joy of creating it is just as much satisfaction as having like the end result, right? Like sitting there and actually drawing out the satisfaction of doing it. That's something you would just, if you have the ability to do so, but just want to skip to the end, you're really missing.
Yeah. Agreed.
But the second benefit, I think does have merit is the idea that AI can speed things up for you or can speed up your workflow, assist you in your process. Like a great example of that, I was watching this YouTube video of the creator of Aqua Teen Hunger Force. I don't know if you know. It's an old show, but he's trying to make a movie of the show. A show that he made back in like the early 2000s, and he's doing it all by himself, his own money, and it's just him. Like there's no one else around him, and he's using AI in like interesting ways, where he can sort of lever, like he doesn't have to like do every single tedious element. He still has full creative control over the process, but he's not doing every single thing.
Right, right. Um, where I was where I was thinking is also like, I mean, you could use it. Okay. What I'm trying to say is, artists who draw on paper and then like digital, they think it's a shortcut, or they think it's a cheat.
In many ways, it is.
It is. You would hit the back button.
Yes.
What you did.
When you erase something, it's like a clean erase.
Yeah.
Like messiness.
No messiness. Yeah, you don't have to start like crunch it up and throw it away and start from scratch. And so, I guess the same or very similar kind of improvements or speed that you're able to take your drawing from pen and paper to digitally, and then now with the help of AI, I mean, to me it sounds like we're just the talent is just getting like easier or less, or you don't need it as much.
The analogy I love to use is photography, and it works on two levels. So, going from film photography to digital photography, the amount of people who are into photography exploded when you no longer had to guess what your image was going to be like. Because when you were working in film, you couldn't see your photo when you're taking the picture, and you were limited to how many photos that was on your all the film. When you went to digital, you can see and you can mess around. You can edit it afterwards and like make a mediocre photo look amazing with like the right tools. So that really opened up the floodgate for people who were kind of interested in photography, found it too scary, but made it easier and therefore more accessible to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And the second analogy is, and this is why I think is more relevant to like any artist that's feeling anxiety about AI art, is back when photography first became like readily prevalent for people, you have to think about what the world was like back then. If you wanted a family portrait, you would have to commission a painter,
right,
to capture your family, to capture likeness, and so that you would have like an image of record.
Yeah.
When photography came around, the need for that kind of like commercial art just like disappeared almost like overnight.
Yeah.
But what was interesting,
not the novelty to have that, or
exactly. And there's a great video with Neil deGrasse Tyson that talks about it, and he's like more knowledgeable on the science side of this. But what was interesting about that time period is that that's when art went through a dramatic change in reaction to that. That's when like Impressionism and Cubism and all these different forms of artistic expression, where they weren't concerned about making things look like the way they look like.
Yeah.
They were more interested of trying to understand how to make
imagination,
feel the emotions of what you're looking. So that was how the artists reacted to a new technology that sort of took over their job.
Yes.
So it's interesting because we're kind of going through the same thing right now. So it's interesting to think about.
And how it would evolve.
Exactly. So how are artists going to respond to that and do something that the AI and then the new technology can't do?
Cannot do. Yes. Okay, that's kind of an interesting spin or take on it. I guess it's difficult to imagine where that's going to lead, because for me, it's like you don't need to, that going back to that instant gratification, you don't have to build on that skill and refine your craft, right? So Now you could do the back button easily, or ask AI to finish your painting because you just don't want to spend the time to do that, or that's not something you're interested in, you'll like it, but now you don't have to improve on that because you could focus more on things that you were good at. Yeah. That being said, like you're saying with that analogy of live photos or impressions, like you could really take that time and let's see what we could do in the future with Hellas. Yeah. So there are definitely lots of benefits. Are there some tools that you can talk about, like whether it's AI apps or even within your Clip Studio or any gun lunch? Is there any
Yeah.
features that really help?
So yeah, I'm glad you brought up Clip Studio because they've been doing a really good job of thinking about how to implement AI as part of your workflow rather than replacing. I'm all for any AI tool that comes in to help with the process, as long as it doesn't replace the process, right? Yeah. That to me is the distinction. If it's replacing like your creative input and control, then that's something I don't want
Yep.
to experiment with. But if it's something where it's going to help assist me with my creative control, then or my creative process is great. So like two good examples of this is Clip Studio Paint has this feature where they have these 3D models. You can import into your canvas and compose them any way that you want as sort of like an anatomy reference. So you can either draw over them, or just use it as like a normal reference. A great tool that they've come out with is posing those characters is really tricky. You can actually spend like 30 minutes just trying to figure out to get the perfect pose of the character before you start drawing. So what they've done is like this, they've given you the ability to upload a photo. Let's say I have a photo of you skiing and you're in like a really cool pose, right? I can upload that photo to Clip Studio Paint and it'll make a 3D model. It will pose the 3D model to that pose. And now I can rotate that pose if I wanted a different angle of it, yes. Zoom in, zoom out, and then I can draw based off of that. And that's a great tool. That's
use your 3D model.
Yeah, I don't have to like pose it and like spend hours just trying to get it right. So that's like an example of like machine learning and AI tools that sped up that process. Another one is it has this tool where if I have clean liner and I've flattened everything out. So flattening is like I define areas that are blue, that are white, that are like brown. Then I can just click a button in Clip Studio Paint and it will do some cell shading rather. Now it's rudimentary, and I don't recommend using it and then just walking away. I'd be calling it done. It just gives you a really good place to start because you can move your light source around and you can sort of understand how the lighting is getting the face or the fabric of like your shirt. And that's a great tool for both learning and trying to execute something really fast. Because then what do? You just go in and you clean it up and you make it look pop.
Okay. So Clip Studio, are there any other tools that you...
Photoshop has a bunch of tools. Right now, they're more so focused on photography. So cleaning up like unwanted elements in your images or expanding your canvas, those type of tools.
But my problem with those, and just, me as like a very sort of amateur, exactly, yeah. He's though her. It is sure very amateur use of these things. I mean, if you don't try, you don't go anywhere. You won't know about it. But it just looks so fake. It looks so definitely AI generated.
Oh, you guys talking about just today? You were talking about you're trying to see if you can do some new headshots for your files, and you
with my face. I just don't want to do the whole like
Photoshop. Like go out to location, get like some like a nice shirt or whatever. You just take a photo of your face, and then AI can like do this. But yeah, you can tell like
it's not. I mean, from what I've tried to use, it's not. And it's a paid version too. Like you pay for the app, but I think what it does is it adds the soft glam or the glamour, the no glam, professional.
Like Snapchat.
Yes, but it's very very filtered, and you you almost don't look
Human?
human. Yeah. And I don't know if that's the looks people are going for when it comes to their professional headshot, depends on whatever industry you're going for. But I do think that there, soon, going back to the controversy, it could become like, like who's real, who's not,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so, I mean, that's a separate kind
I
of topic,
think,
but
well, so I'm like in the last podcast, I say like I'm terrible at making predictions, but I do think there's going to be a counterculture on technology. I think the generations coming up and, they see all the bad about technology. They're going to grow up not liking it and maybe spending less time on their screens.
yeah, I mean, what does it do? Scrolling, they have like certain terms, or especially the
There was a short you just showed me recently, or there was this lady that was walking through like all these criticisms she brought up to all these social media. He said,
right.
so, but
Yes, yeah, that's right about AI, and then and the younger generation is actually very in tune with how it's affecting them.
I manipulate.
Yes, and here, people and adults who are in control, who have power, who are creating or influencing, are not providing the tools for the future generation to cope with all this.
So I think AI, like the prevalence of like AI videos and AI images, I think you'll see a backlash of it. Again, depends on how good AI will become in the future, but I think there's going to be a real genuine yearning for authenticity.
Yeah.
And you already see that with how TikTok took off. If you ask any young person that like TikTok, you ask them what is it they liked about TikTok, they say they feel it's authentic. No one's putting on a show for them. It's someone just literally turned on their phone.
In their home, just casually giving.
So I think AI will have sort of a bad taste to it a little bit in certain areas, like profile images.
Yes, until it learns, I guess, or
I don't know. Maybe our attitudes sort of might change.
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. The kind of the last thing to tie up everything that we're talking about is the ethics of it all and the ethical use of AI in art and how do you envision that? How are you using it? And I guess our audience might want a little bit of guidance on that.
Yeah, so right now in my workflow, I don't use it too much when it comes to creating art. Like when it comes to the YouTube channel, we definitely use it for like ChatGPT to help us to write our scripts, do research, and like clarify our thoughts before we, sit down. Like our show notes was AI assisted, where we, try to come up with some bullet points.
Sidebar: I watched some reel today about this girl saying she uses ChatGPT all the time. She even uses it to craft her messaging in a loving way to her husband to get him to do his things. And
I'll start watching out for the head on the text.
I'm like, I don't know, maybe ChatGPT can learn how I speak to you. And, basically like me prompting it and then, learning how I talk. But I just thought that was a bit ridiculous. But
Yeah, that's kind of scary. I'm gonna be paying attention to
yes.
But yeah, sorry, where were we?
Yeah, we were talking about the ethical use of it, right? And so like
yeah, right now I don't use it in my actual drawing workflow. I am actively looking at tools. Like, I'll give you my wish list. This is how I would use AI if those tools were available. I would use it to take my pencils to clean line art, not inks, like clean line art, so that I can start adding my thick and thins or erasing lines and start hatching it. So it just speed up like that process like tremendously. And the second way is flag. I just talked about flag, how you have to define the areas of color if you're trying to color your piece. And I find flatting very tedious. I remember I was in college, I had a couple of gigs where I was doing flatting for comic books. I had a a classmate who's doing it, and he gave me a couple of pages to do because he was running behind, and it was like the most boring, tedious thing I've ever in my entire life. That was art in it. So those two things, I would definitely want like an AI tool like that, speed them up. But for anything else, I don't want AI to be involved. That I want to be controlled. I want to draw it. I want to, bring it to fruition. But in terms of like ethics, the biggest thing right now is that copyright issue that we talked about at the beginning of the podcast. But the second is how this is going to impact artists, especially artists who are up and coming, haven't established themselves. They're looking to go professional, or maybe they're trying to sort of supplement their income by doing commissions online. I really do believe as these tools become more prevalent and cheaper, that's another thing that people aren't talking about, is that
it doesn't worth it to do it anyway.
Yeah. So what is there might be a whole generation of young people who just don't see the value in drawing, which is a scary thing to think about, but is quite possible. The other is this current generation of artists who are up and coming and trying to make it might face a very different economic landscape because of AI as a competitor that everyone has to contend with. Even myself, like I'm by no means an established artist. So like posting something
said like a true artist.
Yeah. But posting something on Instagram or trying to build a following means that on someone's speed, I'm going to be right behind like some super polished AI piece where there's no disclaimer in that this was AI generated, and I'm happy working.
It's okay compared to that. Yeah. But I mean, to be honest, like right now anyway, where it stands, you could definitely tell the difference.
Yeah.
Like,
there's like a plastic sheen on and off.
For sure, yeah. Like even your dad, who's English teacher, he's like, I could read this and know if it's.
Well, because he knows the author, right? He knows the kid. But he's like, this kid's not producing this and this out.
No, but at the same time, it's like it's very evident. Like, okay, whether it's too good to be true, or it's just not consistent, right? So, in that sense, I think as a consumer of all this information, distincting and also having an appreciation for art. Hopefully, it doesn't die out. Hopefully, things.
Fingers crossed, we're still there in a year's
here. Fingers crossed that people still. What? That being said, I will say, I think the passion that can't be replaced.
Well, there's two things. Yeah, definitely the passion, and I also say originality, because again, you have to remember the AI can only produce what it's read. Yeah, it can't produce anything new. So there's still going to be that human element of you have a weird, kooky idea. You think you're the only one that would like this. You make it and you post it and you find out there's thousands of people that like the same thing that you hear. AI can't replicate.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't know what's coming next. It can only work on what's been before.
Pass. Yeah. All right. That sounds great. I mean, thanks for sharing some of the tools. I hope that was helpful for you guys.
Yeah.
Please let us know in the comments if you have any questions, even if there's any links that you want to any of the podcasts or.
We'll have a brushback coming up. So yeah. I'll be sharing that in the description below. And if you guys want to share your own stories about using AI, so maybe some of the anxieties that you have about it, or maybe how you use AI. Again, I don't think it's neither bad or good. I think picking one side just kind of closes you off on like thinking about the other. So tell me about your gray areas and how you're thinking about AI art.
Yeah. Okay. We'd love to chat in the comments. Thank you.
Bye.